Welcome to PUC AR Children Food Program Training 2020 for daycare centers. This is Nicole Harris. What a weird time this has been for all of us. I pray that this presentation finds you doing well, and you and your children are healthy, and your families are healthy. So let's get starting with our training today. So in the email from me, you should find a copy of the agenda, a Q&A to make sure that you actually watch this training, and a training checklist. And remember that training checklist is what goes into your file to show that you have received your annual food program training for the year, and this is a requirement. So please email me back the Q&A and the training checklist at the end of the training whenever you finish it, to nicole@ar-children.com. I ask that you please try to get this in by September the 11th, 2020. So the training guidelines for this training include that this is a self-paced training, so you can complete it whenever it's convenient for you. If you want to watch 30 minutes of it and take a break and then watch 30 minutes of the next day, that's fine. Just remember that you must complete the entire training to remain in good standing with AR Children. Please contact us if you have any questions or concerns, and please complete and send in the completed Q&A and training checklist back to me by September 11th, 2020. And also feel free to share this training with any of your employees that work with or either directly with the food program. That could be an infant teacher, a cook, someone who fills out the paperwork for you, and feel free for them to do that. If they would like to receive a training certificate from me, then have them also fill out the Q&A and send that to me, and I will email you back a 3-hour training certificate for your time. And I will also include this on PDR after everyone has completed the training. So it'll probably be the end of September. If you're needing that on the PDR, please make sure you include your PDR number. So this is the form that's been created in Adobe, and you may open it and fill it out on your computer, and you can just email it back to me at nicole@ar-children.com. Or if it's easier for you, you can print it out, and then you can just check, just check yes on everything, fill it out and scan, email, or you can use the new scanning app on your phone. Or if you want to, you can just mail a copy to our office. Whatever works best for you. I want to make sure that I'm answering all of your questions. And so at the end of this presentation, if you have any questions, please email me or call the office Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. Remember that we're here for you. Training definitely looks different this year, but I want to assure you that we are here for you. It's definitely odd me sitting talking to my computer and not seeing you face to face, but we just felt like creating this YouTube video for you to watch at your convenience, which would be much easier than trying to get y'all all together on Zoom or another platform like that. So I hope that this will work for everyone. So you should also receive a copy of the agenda in your email. And these are the things that I'm going to cover during this presentation. So our objective for this training is just to go back over the basics. So after completing this training, participants will have a better understanding of the requirements of the CACFP program and be able to go back and implement at their child care center. One of the first things that we need to talk about when participating in CACFP is civil rights. And everyone should have a copy of the Justice for All poster. And this is what the Justice for All So this is what the Justice for All poster looks like. Please make sure that you have this newest updated one. If you have one that has the Statue of Liberty at the top, that is an older poster and you can just get rid of it, and please make sure that you have the newest updated poster. This is the first thing that we're required to look for when we come out to do a visit. It'll also be the first thing the state would be looking for, or the feds would be looking for. So please make sure that you have this. If for some reason you do not have a copy of the newest poster, please contact our office and let us know. Mona can mail you one, or we can make arrangements for Amy to bring one out for your next monitoring review. The next thing is the Building for the Future. This is put out by the state. Last year I gave you a poster. This year they have these really nice trifold pamphlets that you can give out to the parents. So if you would like to, you can download these and print copies for your families. And then there's also a new Building for the Future poster that looks like this that you can post. I like this one just because I took away all the blue background, so you're not using up all your blue ink. So if you need a copy of this poster, please let us know, and you can just print it on 8.5 by 11. We also have this one in Spanish. The next thing is the WIC, and make sure that you're telling your parents about WIC, and this should be posted like in your parent center, and you can also contact your local health WIC office and I'm sure that they'll be able to provide you with these fact sheets. I do not have the newest one. This is last year's, but I did happen to find the new income eligibility guidelines. So if you'd like to print this out, that way you'll know what the income guidelines are for WIC if you have parents that are interested and need more information. Okay, these are some of the resources that I'm going to be using in the training today, that you can go back and check out their websites. The first one is Smarter Mealtimes in Childcare. This is a great resource. It has ideas and tips that result in increased selection and consumption of healthy foods that are simple and effective. They have some free printable material, including posters and handouts that you might enjoy using in your family daycare home. Another great one is Picky Eaters. This is at choosemyplate.gov. This website provides excellent tips and tricks for how to handle those picky eaters in your home, and additional resources, handouts, and downloads are also available. One of my favorite websites to use is put together by Provider's Choice. They are a sponsoring organization, and with the new meal patterns means needing new recipe ideas, and they have hundreds of approved recipes for CACFP and sizes for childcare homes. And you can find recipes for whole grain rich vegetables, snacks, and cooking with kids. And I'm going to share a few of their recipes later on in this training. Another great resource is Team Nutrition. They have developed recipes created for childcare homes and centers, including many different recipes, as well as recipes that focus on vegetables and meat alternates. These are great standardized type recipes that you can use in your family childcare home. Okay, here's a copy of the new updated letter to the parent. This should also be included in the email that you received under handouts. So all of the new forms should be in the email that you received. If you're missing anything, like I've said before, just don't hesitate to contact us, okay? So this one is effective July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. And remember that this is a form that you want to give out to any new families. You'll just put the name of your home at the top, and then you just give it to the family, and it just informs the parent that you have chosen to participate in the USDA food program, and it just gives them the information that they will need. The next thing we need to talk about is enrollment forms. We must have an enrollment form on every child in your care. And we must have a copy in our office before you submit your claim. Okay? Make sure that the parent signs and dates it, and that you double check everything before you sign off. And make sure you initial it and date each form. Fax, mail, or email our office a copy before filing your copies away. And remember, they're good for 1 year. So every year you must renew your enrollments, and you can do it however you want. You can do it monthly as they expire, or a lot of our homes and centers set up an anniversary date, and they just say, okay, October 1, we are going to renew all of our enrollments for the year. So that way you only have to worry about new families that come in throughout the year. But it's very important that you make sure that every blank is filled out and it's all true to the best of your knowledge, and then you initial and date it at the top, but it's good for 1 year from the date where the parent. This is what the enrollment form looks like, and just like I just went over, just make sure that you fill out all the blanks. Make sure that we have the first name, last name, age, birthday, hours of care, days a week, and gender of the children. Please make sure that the names match. So whatever name you put on the enrollment form is the same name you put on your attendance records and your obligation to serve forms, so that they all match, and it makes it easier for Mona to figure out which kids we have enrollment forms on. Please make sure that the parents note any allergies if they have them, and doctor's names and phone numbers. Remember that if it's a severe allergy, make sure and get that medical statement, which we'll talk more about in a few minutes. And then also make sure the parent signs it and dates it. And this form is good for 1 year from the time that the parent dates it. But you need to make sure that it's all correct to the best of your knowledge. You will initial it and date it, and send a copy to Mona, and then file this form away in your records. As a reminder too, is when Mona asks for a new updated enrollment form, please make sure you get a new fresh enrollment form, and that you don't just white out things and try to use the same form as last year for the current year. Is the obligation to serve infant form. And remember that we must have an obligation to serve infant form on every infant in your care. And what is an infant in the CACFP program? Well, an infant is 0 to 12 months of age. And how many types of formula are you required to offer, might I ask? Well, only one. You're only required to offer one type of iron-fortified infant formula. But can I offer more? Yes, of course you can. A lot of our larger homes and most of our centers do offer 2 types of formula. They offer a milk-based iron-fortified infant formula and a soy-based iron-fortified infant formula. That way, you cover, probably 98% of all of the infants that will come through your home. For those extra 2% that are on a special formula, then the parent can choose to provide that formula. Or we are really wanting to encourage mothers to breastfeed, and so we're allowing you to claim a personal breastfeeding of an infant on site at the facility. So you just need to provide a place inside of your home where the mother can come in and sit and nurse their baby, and then give the baby back to you for care. So this works out great if you have an employee that has a new baby, or if they don't work very far away from your home. But the key is that they do have to nurse inside of your home. They can't take the baby out and nurse in their car or go somewhere and then bring them back for you to claim them on the food program. Now, they can always provide the breast milk in bottles, and you can claim that. So on this form, make sure that you put your name and the type or types of formula that you're offering, and please tell us what type it is. So like Enfamil with iron or Prosobi with iron, whatever. It can be parents' choice. It doesn't matter what the brand name is, but please tell us exactly what type or types of formula you are offering. The next line is you want to put the name of the infant, and remember, whatever name that you put on your obligation to serve infant form, that it's the exact same name that's on the enrollment form. Okay, and then the parent is going to accept the type of formula offered by my provider. So say you put Enfamil with iron, and they're like, oh yes, that's what my child takes. So they're going to check that they're going to accept it. And then that means that as long as that baby is on formula, you're going to provide that formula for that baby. Now, some parents will say, I would like to breastfeed on site, and they can do that. Or they accept the meals and snacks offered by my provider, or they can decline. So once they're about 6 months of age, you're going to start offering iron fortified infant cereals and fruits and vegetables and breads and grains and things like that, so that parent can accept or decline the meals and snacks. If they say that they're going to decline the formula that you're offering, they also need to tell us exactly what they're going to provide. So if they're going to provide, a more specialized Similac formula, or they're going to provide breast milk for you, they need to put that on the line. And then there's another question. I will provide meals and snacks for my infant. They need to circle yes or no and sign it and date it. And this form is good for the first year of life. And if things do change within that first year, say they're on breast milk for the first few months and then they want to switch to a formula, please send in a new updated obligation to serve infant form. We would really appreciate that. Okay. The next form we need to talk about is the medical statement, okay? If a substitution is due to a disability or a special dietary need, the parent must provide a medical statement from the baby's healthcare provider. The medical statement must include the following: the name of the food or foods that need to be avoided, explanation on how the food or food affects the baby, and a signature of the baby's healthcare provider on the form. And recommendations for substitutions of foods can be included. And keep this medical statement on file in a secure location at your child care site. And it's just so important that you have this so that you protect yourself when it comes to feeding those babies and children. The only exception that we do not have to have a medical statement for is if you have a child that the parents prefer them to be on soy milk versus cow's milk. You can provide a soy milk without a medical statement. So if you decide to provide soy milk, you just need to make sure that you're purchasing a nutritionally equivalent soy milk. And so if you have any questions on whether this particular soy milk is nutritionally equivalent, don't hesitate to call. And then we also have a chart that I have shared with you in the past that shows some of the different milks that are acceptable and some that are not. Okay, and this is what the medical statement looks like. And there should be a copy in the email that I sent you, but also please let us know if you need one, and we can get those to you. Okay. So contact us. We're so very excited to let you know that we finally have a new office. I'm just so sad because of everything that's going on that y'all weren't able to come and visit, and I haven't been able to have training there, but we are here for you. Mona's email is centers@ar-children.com, and that will go directly to her desktop. Mine is nicole@ar-children.com. And our new location in Little Rock is 6323 Ranch Drive, Suite A. And I really look forward for y'all to actually get to come by and see us. So if you're in the area, just give us a call, and we'd love for you to come by and see our new office. We did have to get a new local number, unfortunately. So our new local number is 501-737-8038. And we also had to get a new fax number, which is 501-737-8040. But fortunately, we were able to keep our 1-800 number, which is 1-800-423-1367. And our website is the same, www.ar-children.com. So remember, we're here to serve you. Don't hesitate to call us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Okay, let's get started with feeding our children. So we're going to talk about Eat Happy. And what Smarter Mealtimes means is that there are some really simple things that you can do at Mealtimes to help create a happy or positive mealtime experience. And you know that's what we want to do. We are going to review some of the things, but I would imagine that many of you might already be doing some of these with your kids. But I just wanted to kind of give you a review. Okay, so let's talk about a healthy nutritional environment. A healthy nutrition environment is really the foundation of CACFP. By having a healthy nutrition environment, this helps make meal times enjoyable and reduce picky eaters and set the stage to engage with children in the kitchen. Some of the goals are to teach children that meal times are enjoyable, to form lifelong healthy eating habits, and to reduce the risk of overweight or obese children. So to summarize that, it's just not about what we eat at meal times, but how we eat it. And to remember that healthy habits start at an early age. And that it doesn't matter how many nutritious and healthy items that we put on the plate, it's not nutrition unless it gets eaten. So that's just a great reminder for all of us. So I want to give you some ideas about how you can make small, simple changes to help increase the consumption and maybe those meal pattern requirements that have not been, well, let's say less than popular. So some smarter mealtime key factors. Giving healthy food choices fun, descriptive names like supercharged green beans can increase consumption by over, how much do you think? We talked about this a few years ago, but interesting enough, it's 30%. So think about that the next time you serve something that may not be as popular of a food item. Offering sliced fruits instead of whole can increase the consumption by, what do you think? Think about yourself. Would you like to be handed a whole apple, or would you prefer to have an apple put in front of you that's already sliced or diced? So what would be that percentage? 70%. So that's crazy. So instead of just, think about that. Instead of just giving each child an apple or an orange or a banana, take the time to slice that fruit and make it look appealing to the children. Providing, a variety of vegetables and fruits instead of just one fruit or vegetable can increase the consumption from 70% to, what do you think? 94%. So anytime that you can offer a variety of fruits and vegetables, that is going to help increase consumption. So many of the smarter mealtimes concepts are as simple as ABC. And we've also talked about these ABCs before, and I wanted to review them with you again. So think about how you are setting your atmosphere. A is for atmosphere. Are you using age-appropriate bowls and silverware to allow children to serve themselves more easily? Do you display colorful artwork of fruits and vegetables, or artwork from the kitchen or from the kids to create a welcoming space? Do you display nutritional education that relates to the meals or the lessons that you're teaching? Do you remove clutter and discard trash in a timely manner? And also, it's always a great idea to get the kids involved in doing that. No one expects you to be the maid all day long. Get those kids to help clean up that trash. Make that a fun activity, having a special cleanup helper of the day. What about family-style meals? Creating a no-pressure atmosphere to try something new. Positive mealtime transition. And this is really important with small children. Sometimes they have a very difficult time transitioning from play to sitting down for lunch. So notify those kids that lunch is going to be in about 5 minutes so they can mentally prepare to transition from playtime to that mealtime. Okay, B, the next area is B for behavior. Role model healthy eating habits. So how many of you sit down and eat with the kids? So by eating with the kids and not consuming unhealthy foods and beverages in front of them, that is huge in getting children to consume their meals. Refrain from using food as a reward for good behavior or punishment of withholding foods. Plan activities such as gardening, and we have talked about gardening before, and USDA has a wonderful gardening program that if you haven't seen, I encourage you to look into. I think that Amy might have handed out some information about gardening to you last year, but if you don't, that would be a wonderful way that to get kids involved, and you can do a simple garden in a container in your backyard. So plan those activities and anything like that to get kids involved. Use non-food treats for celebrations or nutritional snacks. So like when it's a birthday, maybe have the child pick out their favorite healthy snack to celebrate. Or use non-food things like stickers or special coloring pages or something like that instead of the traditional cake and cookies. Because when you have a larger home, there's birthdays all the time. So then your kids are having way too much sugar all the time. So the next thing that we want to talk about is the C. And C is for communication. So discuss food during mealtimes. Mealtime talk and exploration can reinforce the learnings of what you're teaching them already, like colors, flavors, smells, textures, such as canned pineapple is tangy and these carrots are so crunchy. Ooh, and oh, Johnny, what color is that broccoli? Yes, it is green. What else can you tell me that is the color green? Oh, and milk. Milk is so smooth and white. So show that you think of these foods are good. Steamed carrots are my favorite orange vegetable. What is your favorite orange vegetable? I eat carrots to help me see better. Or these sweet strawberries make my mouth so happy. So involve your peers. Sam, what's your favorite thing about peas? Announce the menu so that the kids know what to expect. Have children help give the menu items some fun and catchy names, like jumpin' green beans and rainbow fruit salad and little tree broccoli, and talk about imaginative names and menu items before and or during the meal times. But please remember not to put these fun names on your production sheets that you send in to Melissa. Okay. Avoid bribery when encouraging new foods, and let the parents know what their children ate. This dialogue can help reinforce what great work you do as a provider to show to the parents your wholesome meals, variety, and often the discovery that their kids are more willing to try foods with you than they are at home. So it's really great to let those parents know, and it makes the kids so excited and so proud that you give them a sticker that said, "I tried something new today," or ask me what I tried today. So that's always fun. So what are some easy changes that we can make? You could throw a dip in with veggies. What kid does not like to dip? Offer at least 2 types of fruits and vegetables. We could grow a small garden, or like we talked about, a container garden. Use stickers. Stickers are so fun as rewards, but also you could put them on cups. You can put them on dishes. You could, if you did get bananas, you could put a sticker on the banana. Anything that has whatever your kids like. So if they really are into Elmo or Paw Patrol, pick up some stickers at the dollar store and just have fun with it, because you'll be so surprised at how much more willing your children are to try something if it has a sticker on it. Another thing is the fun names, and I think that just always just makes things more fun. Okay, the next part we're going to talk about is cultivating those little sous chefs. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about cooking with kids. But before you all panic that our rambunctious 2-year-old is going to burn the house down, let me assure you that there's a lot of activities that are considered cooking, quote, without heat, burning, or knives. And also, I know that a lot of times the health department doesn't allow the kids to actually come into the kitchen, so you can also just bring the cooking to them. So when I refer to cook, keep in mind that does not mean heating on the stove. I'm kind of more referring to preparing items or putting them together. Okay. So Guy Fieri said, cooking with kids is not just about ingredients, recipes, and cooking. It's about harnessing imagination, empowerment, and creativity. I've shared this quote before, but I just love it, so I wanted to share it again. So why do we cook with kids? Does anyone currently cook with kids in your childcare home? Think about that. What do you make? What do you have them help with? Well, it definitely increases confidence and self-esteem. Reading and math skills, small motor skills and hand and eye coordination, patience and self-control, obviously creativity, and sometimes some really great problem solving and math skills. So why cook with the kids? The kitchen is really a classroom where children can learn science, math, language, art, and reading. The kitchen offers abundance in lessons in basic chemistry, discovering how certain ingredients combined react and change as they cook, math with fractions and the amounts needed for a specific recipe, language by getting kids to describe what they see, taste, and feel, along with fine motor skills to tear, stir, and pour. It helps with their language skills and teamwork, working together, the ability to follow directions, because what happens if you don't do the recipe in the right order? The openness to try new foods, understand where food comes from, and independence. So this all sounds so simple and easy, right? We will just bring out our entire family childcare in the kitchen, and they will all listen, follow directions, and we'll all learn and grow together through creative play. Well, if it were that easy, we would already be doing this. So let's discuss some of the tips to get started by bringing those kiddos into the kitchen. So we want to start small, maybe with a simple snack of making their own cereal trail mix by letting them each make their own. And this is very easy to do, and you can bring it out to the table and make sure that they've washed, sanitized their hands, and then have little cups for each of the different items that you want to include into this trail mix, and then let them go around and scoop and make their own trail mix. You need to plan ahead and definitely expect a mess, but get them involved in cleaning it up. You're going to have patience. Things will not always go as planned, but remember, this is so important that I still have to remind myself of sometimes with my own children, is that children really enjoy the experience and the process just as much, or not, maybe as more than the final product. So with young children, it's not about the final product, it's about the process and the experience that they have. Be a coach and not an instructor. So as a coach, you may ask the kids, how about if we add this? What will happen if we do that? We're out of eggs. What can we use instead? What do you think? Just let them, you'll just be so amazed at some of the things that these kids come up with. Now, is it messier with kids? Yes. Does it take more time? Absolutely. But remember that the benefits can really outweigh the challenges. So let's take a look at some activities that you can do cooking with kids based on their age. Keep in mind that every child is different, and some children may be able to do all of these activities by age, and others may not yet be ready. These age categories are just suggestions. Your group of kids and kitchen setup best. So let's review under 2. Under 2 can sit in a high chair. You can provide a small bowl and spoon and allow the child to touch, feel, smell the different food items. A 2-year-old can tear lettuce. They can rinse vegetables and fruit. They can snap green beans. They can add items to a bowl, or they can sort items. Some may even be able to carry items to the table. A 3-year-old can pour liquids into a bowl, mix ingredients, spread soft spreads, knead dough, wrap potatoes in foil, mash potatoes, squeeze citrus like oranges, and name and count foods. And some may even be able to assemble their own little individualized pizza. A 4 and 5-year-old can set the table. They could scramble eggs. They could peel hard-boiled eggs, peel some fruits like oranges and bananas. They can measure dry and wet ingredients, scrub fruits and vegetables, make sandwiches and salads, and cut some soft fruits. A 6 to 8-year-olds, they can read and follow the recipe, gather utensils and ingredients, grade or peel ingredients, and cut firmer fruits and vegetables. There may be other activities that children will be able to do in your kitchen depending on the number of children that you're working together and their age and their ability. I would definitely to be very careful with the grading and the peeling. When my daughter was 4 years old, she was attending a nature preschool, and I thought it was really neat that they allow them to do so many things that as a parent I'd be like, I'm not sure if I'd want my preschooler doing that. But they had them sitting in like hula hoops, so they weren't close to any other child. And then they had sticks, and they had potato peelers. So they were teaching them how to whittle a stick using a potato peeler. And evidently my brilliant 4-year-old was not paying attention and she whittled the skin right off her finger. She's 7 years old now and still has this little scar. So I would say be very careful with the grating and the peeling. So take the next couple of minutes, and I would like for you to think about what types of things you can have in your childcare that you can have them do in the kitchen. Think about recipes or foods that children can make and or non-food activities that can help you to participate in. So after you come up with a few ideas, here are a few here. They can make their own sandwich, make their own pizza, make their own snacks. They can tear lettuce for the salad. They could set the table. And maybe the older children could take turns loading the dishwasher. Wouldn't that be helpful? Some additional ideas that you may not have thought about. School agers can take out the ingredients for a meal and help younger children make their meals. They could make PB&J sandwiches. Make your own salads, like tear the lettuce, grab different vegetable toppings, shredded cheese, croutons, different dressings. They can open pea pods and like edamame. They could wash fruits in colanders. They could cut sections of fruit. They could pick the grapes, off the stems. Scoop of a muffin mix with toppings and add-ins. Oatmeal with toppings, scrambled eggs, spreading peanut butter, individualized pizzas, yogurt parfaits, soft pretzels, eggs, tuna, chicken salad, muffins, sandwiches. Just keep in mind, cooking with kids doesn't necessarily need to be in the kitchen. Each child can make their own creations in their spot at the table where they normally eat. This way, whatever taste or licks or their items is still theirs and their own germs, and we're not spreading, because we definitely want to make sure that we're not spreading germs. So let's look at some additional ideas that we could come up with, and then you could do with your kiddos to cook with kids. Here is a fun recipe that my daughter just loves. It's a go fishing snack. What you'll need for this is 6 tablespoons of peanut butter or a nut butter, 6 large pretzel rods, and 1.5 cups of goldfish crackers. And you place the nut butter on their plate and 1 pretzel rod and goldfish crackers on individual plates. And let the kids dip their pretzel rods into the nut butter and go fishing for the goldfish crackers. So this is a lot of fun. It makes 6 snacks, 1/4 cup of crackers, 1 pretzel rod, and 1 tablespoon of nut butter provides 1 grain and 1 meat alternate for a 3 to 5 year old. And you can see in this picture we added carrot sticks just to add that fruit or vegetable. But remember, for snack, only 2 food items are required. Here's another really fun snack. It's to make bunny juice, and when you give it that fun name, it's going to encourage kids. And I'll tell you, some kids just absolutely love this because they think, oh, it tastes like ketchup or it tastes like spaghetti sauce, but some just don't care for it. So I would definitely try this with your kids. Take 3/4 cup of low sodium tomato juice, 2 1/4 cups of carrots peeled and chunked, and 1.5 cups of cucumbers chunked. And then you're going to add that tomato juice and the carrots to the blender for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then add the cucumbers and blend mixture until it's very smooth. And this makes 3 cups. And 1/2 cup provides 1/2 cup vegetable for a 3 to 5 year old at snack. And you can pair this with their favorite whole grain cracker for a yummy bunny snack. This next one is really fun, Gooey Towers. And it would look a little bit different than the picture, but you would take 3/4 cup of peanut butter or nut butter, 1.5 cups of celery chopped into really small pieces, 12 whole grain crackers, similar to Triscuits, but you could use any other like a wheat thin. 6 tablespoons of raisins. So in a bowl, you're going to stir your finely chopped celery and nut butter until it's well mixed. And then you're going to lay the crackers in a row and place about 2 tablespoons of the nut butter mixture on each cracker and top with a 1/2 tablespoon of raisins. And you should be able to make 12 towers. And 2 towers provides a 1/2 ounce of grain and a 1/2 ounce of meat or meat alternate for a 3 to 5-year-old for snack. And the credit goes to the Twist and Sprout cookbook, which I told you before you could find at that Provider's Choice website. And this is really fun to get the kids involved. The next recipe that I wanted to share with you was the watermelon pizza. And watermelon is so good right now. I mean, you can buy it, at your local farmer's market. And so you'll take 6 watermelon wedges, and they need to be about 1 inch thick and about 3 inches wide at the rind, and 1.5 cups of cottage cheese and 3/4 cups of blueberries. So top each watermelon slice with 1/4 cup of cottage cheese and 2 tablespoons of blueberries. And this makes 6 watermelon pizzas. And 1 slice provides a 1/2 ounce of meat or meat alternate and a 1/2 cup of fruit for a 3 to 5-year-old. And I thought this would be a really fun one here in the summer. And this next one is also a really fun one for the summer. And is to make shake 'em up smoothies. And you don't have to use a blender if you don't want to. This is a fun one. If you want to try it, you can put it in baggies or a mason jar. You chill the yogurt or applesauce and juice and combine it in containers for the kids to shake. And then you serve it right in the shaker, or you can pour it into plastic cups. And kids can measure and shake up their smoothies. They can change it up with different yogurt flavors, different juices, or different cured fruit. So that very first one, I got these from General Mills, and the very first one is a strawberry yogurt, apple juice, and applesauce. You could add a little lemon juice for a pink lemonade smoothie. The one in the middle is a strawberry yogurt with pineapple juice and applesauce. And the third one is a vanilla yogurt, orange juice, and applesauce. And that one's probably my daughter's favorite. She just loves anything that has that orange juice in it. So it's really good and fun to make. But you also could take any of these ingredients and add some ice and do it in the blender yourself. And I think the ice makes it a little bit more tasty. The next thing is really fun is this requires no recipe. You just let the kids have fun. You can create samples for them to get inspired. Or right now, a lot of you have older kids there, and maybe during nap time for the younger ones, the older ones could cut up fruits and vegetables and make some fun little critters to share with the younger ones once they wake up from their nap. So where do you find your fun recipes? A lot of these came from Provider's Choice and also from Pinterest. I've shared every year how much I love Pinterest. And remember, I do have a Pinterest account. It's AR-Children. And I try to share recipes and menu items that I think that you might enjoy in your family daycare home that are reimbursable in CACFP. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the calendar. How many of you are using your calendar keepers? I love these calendars, and I'm so thankful that we are able to provide these calendars for you every year. So if you go to cacfp.org, there's also some extra lessons that can go along with your calendar. There's parent letters that you can modify to send home to your parent to let them know what you're doing at your family daycare home. There's also posters that you can hang up. So I hope that you are using your calendar keepers. And there's also on CACFP.org, there's some small trainings on just using your calendar. If you decide that you would like to do one of those trainings, you can, and just let me know that you've completed it, and you can send that training certificate, and we can give you some extra 30 minutes or an hour of training. So that website is great, and it just has lots of resources that you can use in your home. All right, here's the meal patterns for children, and everyone should have a laminated copy of this meal patterns for children. If you do not have a copy of it, it should be included in the handouts that I emailed to you. But if you would like a laminated copy, just let Melissa know, and we can mail one to you, or have Mona or Amy deliver it to you. But this is just a great resource to have out on your refrigerator, in your kitchen, on a clipboard that's handy, that you can refer to remember what the minimum requirements are for each meal. Because for some meals it is different. So we want to make sure that you're always serving the minimums. And I always get asked, is it okay to serve more? Of course, it's always okay to serve more. These are just the minimums that are required. And I did talk about a little bit last year and did a little show and tell about how important it is that you do start out with the minimums, so that way the kids get a well-balanced meal. Because for breakfast, we want them to drink their milk, we want them to have a fruit or vegetable, and we want them to have a grain or a meat or meat alternate. And if you just give them extra cereal, then more than likely they're not going to eat their fruit or vegetable or drink their milk, because their tummies are going to be already full. So what we want to do is encourage them to drink their minimum of milk, their minimum of fruit and vegetable, and their minimum of grain. And then if they want more, of course, give them more. These minimum requirements, every child's different of what they need. And it changes from day to day. I mean, there's some days that my daughter will eat and eat and eat, and then there's other days I can hardly get her to eat anything. So I understand how children's appetite changes, but we always want to make sure that we're starting out with the minimums of all the food groups. And so for snack, remember you can choose 2 foods from 2 different food groups. So there's the milk group, there's the meat and meat alternate, there's fruit, vegetable, and grain. And I'm sure most of you know now that the fruits and vegetables have been separated for snack and lunch and supper. So you can have a fruit and vegetable, which that has been not allowed in the past. And for lunch or supper, you may have a vegetable and a fruit, or you can have 2 vegetables. Just make sure that you're not having 2 fruits. And some of our centers like to have 2 vegetables and a fruit, and that's okay too. So just document that on your production record. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are credible in CACFP. Okay? So our first one. Is this credible? We have a 6-ounce carton of strawberry yogurt, and it has 18 grams of sugar. So is this credible? And if it is credible, what is it credible for? I'll give you a second to think about it. Yes, it is. You're right. It is credible. And it's credible as a meat or a meat alternate. And remember that it does not credit as a fruit, only a meat or meat alternate. Homemade is not credible, but it is okay frozen. Remember, yogurt must contain less than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces, or less than 3.83 grams of sugar per ounce. And credible yogurt can now be frozen. So, you should have all received choosing yogurts that lower in added sugar at our last couple of years trainings. If you do not have a copy of this, it should also be in the handouts. but we can also send you one if you need it. It's just a great handout to help you just to figure out if a yogurt is credible in CACFP or not. I will tell you that the majority of the yogurts that you're going to see in your store are credible. The ones that are not going to be are the ones that are lower to the bottom that are geared to children. The ones with the characters on them, they're going to have higher amounts of sugar. And like the Danimals, they have higher amounts of sugar. And then the ones that have fruit on the bottom, because the fruit on the bottom is more like preserves or jelly. And so that's just added with tons of added sugar. So you want to stay away from those. But pretty much any of the other, it does not have to be plain low-fat Greek yogurt. So it can be strawberry Yoplait or blueberry or anything like that. Okay, next, I'd like for you to correct this meal. This is lunch for a 4-year-old. The provider wrote down pasta, tomato sauce, green beans, and milk. So, what's wrong with this meal? What do we need to do to make it correct? That's right, we need something that's whole wheat. So remember that the whole grain, you just have to have one whole grain item per day. So if this provider had whole grain for breakfast or had whole grain for snack, then that pasta does not have to be whole grain. But if it is whole grain, we ask that you document that. Okay, we need a meat. There's not a meat here. We assume probably that there was meat involved, but it's not listed. So tell us what type of meat. So they had ground beef with the tomato sauce. Okay, the green beans are fine, but we need a fruit. So we're going to have pears. And then you need to tell us what type or types of milk. And you don't have to write out, every time, but you could put a W. So if you have some that are under the age of 2 that are drinking whole milk, then you could put a W/1%. And then Melissa will know that the whole milk goes to the 1 to 2 year olds and the 1% milk goes for the 2 and up. Okay. So note all 5 components must be served at lunch. Can't serve 2 of the same food items, and 2 veggies or a fruit and veggie and not 2 fruits. And whole wheat pasta is an option at this meal, but it's not required. Remember, only once per day. So talking about whole grain, what about this pizza crust? Yes, it is credible, but it's credible as a grain only. It's enriched or a whole grain crust. Remember that a CN label is required for a meat or meat alternate or vegetables. So if you buy a pizza that's already has the cheese and vegetables on it, we must have a CN label and record CN on your menu. Now, if you've made this pizza, like you bought this crust and you've made the pizza, then please put an HM that we know that's homemade. So you would tell us the crust, and that would count as your grain, and then you would just need to add the minimum amount of cheese and meat. So for example, a provider would need to add 12 ounces of meat or meat alternate, so 3 cups of cheese to the top of a pizza crust, and then cut the pizza into 8 slices to provide the 1.5 ounces of meat or meat alternate and the grain bread servings for a 3 to 5 year old. If they only add 8 ounces of meat and or cheese and cuts in 8 slices, then each slice provides 1 ounce of meat or meat alternate and grain bread. So a 3 to 5 year old would need 2 slices to meet that minimum requirement. So that may or may not be a reasonable serving. So just keep that in mind too when you homemade things. It's just that, is this a reasonable amount for the children to eat? And so I mentioned CN labels, and some of you should all know what they are, but there may be some of you that are new and like, oh, what's a CN label? Well, a CN label is not only is it important to have a copy of your CN label, but you also need to make sure that you know how to use that label and to make sure you're serving enough to meet the serving size requirement. And make sure that you place a CN beside that food item on your child's production records every single time you serve that product. So an example of one would be these State Fair corn dogs. As you can see in the middle of the screen, there's a box and it has CN on all 4 sides. And inside that box, it reads, this 4-ounce corn dog provides 2-ounce equivalent of meat and 2 servings of bread alternate for child nutrition meal pattern requirements. So one corn dog served 48. That means there's 48 corn dogs in this bag. So for lunch, a 1 to 2 year old would need half of a corn dog cut up. But you do need to make sure that it's cut up in small pieces because hot dogs are a choking hazard. And if it is against your licensing, then please do not give that to the 1 to 2 year olds. But for the 3 and up, a 3 and up would each receive 1 corn dog. So by serving that 1 corn dog, they'll be getting twice the amount of bread and grain that is required. By serving the same 1 corn dog to 1 to 5 year olds, they're getting 4 times the amount of bread. So again, keep the full label on file because it gives the total count of the corn dogs in the bag of 48, and you can figure out from this serving size times how many servings are in the bag as shown here. So just make sure that you're keeping these on file, and if you have any questions, you can always snap a picture of the CN label and send it in. Melissa will be able to help you, or you can email it to me and I can let you know if this is credible or not. But we do, that was one thing that when the feds went out to some of our sites last year, is that you did not have a CN label on file for all the products that you were serving. Now, every time you serve that product, you don't have to save the label. You can just save it one time, but make sure that you're continually buying the exact same product, and also make sure that your CN label has not expired. That's something new that I found out, that they do expire. Who knew? So make sure that you don't have one that has expired. Okay, here is another CN label that we can look at. This CN label is for a breaded chicken breast chunk, so it's like chicken nuggets. Within the CN label, it tells us that 5.88 ounce breaded fully cooked chicken nuggets is 2.43 ounce total. This provides 2 ounce equivalent of meat or meat alternate and 1 serving of bread alternate for child nutrition meal pattern requirement. So 5 nuggets times 51 servings. This means there's 255 nuggets in this bag. And we know by this label that a 1 to 2 year old would need 3 chicken nuggets, a 3 to 5 year old would need 4 chicken nuggets, and a 6 to 12 year old would need 5 chicken nuggets. With these serving sizes, the children would be getting the right amount of bread and grain. And just remember on the production record, when you write chicken nuggets or chicken chunks, that you put a CN beside it. That way that we know that you have a CN label on file and you know how to read it, and that you're giving the children the proper amount of chicken nuggets to meet the meat and bread requirement for that meal. Okay, the next thing, let's correct this statement. And I think I've already kind of touched on it, so I've probably already given away the answer, but correct this statement. At least 2 servings per day of grain must be whole grain rich for infants and children. What do you think? At least 1 serving of grain must be whole grain rich for children. The whole grain requirement is not required for infants. Even though most of the new infant cereals are whole grain rich, it's not required until they are 1 year of age. And yes, it's fine if you want to choose to do all of your grains whole grains. I just want to make sure that you understand that it's not a requirement that you have all of your grains. So if you have a whole grain for breakfast today, then you can have a regular grain for lunch and PM snack. And tomorrow, if you have it for lunch, then you don't have to have it for breakfast. So just keep that in mind when you're meal planning. So we're going to spend some time talking about whole grain again. I know that we've talked about this before, but I want to make sure that you understand how to identify if a product is whole grain rich. And like we've said before, just don't hesitate to call and ask. I'd rather you call and ask, hey, is this product whole grain rich, than to serve a product and then we come out to do a review and find out that you've been serving a product that you thought was whole grain because the labels are, they're sometimes it's just hard to tell, and then it's not. And we have to deduct those meals. So in the child and adult care food program, there are 6 methods to identifying if a product is whole grain rich. And as long as it meets one of these 6 methods, it's considered whole grain rich and CACFP credible and can be used to meet the meal pattern requirements. So the first one is food is labeled whole wheat and meets the FDA standard of identity. So certain breads and pastas products specifically labeled whole wheat on the package and which conform to an FDA standard of identity can be considered whole grain rich. A set of rules for what is certain the product must contain or may contain to legally be labeled with the product's name. So you're only going to find this on breads and pasta with these exact product names, conform to the FDA standard of identity, and can be considered whole grain rich using this method. So on breads, it's going to say 100% whole wheat bread. It's going to say graham rolls. It's going to say entire wheat bread, whole wheat bun, graham bread, and entire wheat bun. Pastas, there's going to have a whole wheat macaroni, whole wheat spaghetti, whole wheat macaroni product. So that would be the first way. We want to be aware of manufacturers may label their foods with similar terms to FDA standard of identity, and watch for terms such as whole grain, made with whole grain, or contains whole grain, or this one I think says baked with whole wheat. These terms do not indicate an FDA standard of identity. So this product, these Ritz crackers, they're not whole grain rich using the identification method, but it's still CACFP credible. So you may serve these crackers, but they would not count as your WG or your whole grain for the day. Okay? So we have to be really careful when we're reading our products. The second way is food is found on any state agency's WIC approved whole grain food list. So if you have a copy of Arkansas's whole grain food list, this is a picture of Texas because I found that image. But if it's listed on there, and when you go to Walmart, they always label WIC underneath every product that's WIC approved. So if you see that, then you know it's approved. And also when you see that WIC under a cereal product, you know that cereal is approved. So that's an easy way when you're shopping to know if that product is approved on CACFP. Number 3 is an FDA statement. One of the following FDA statements is included on the label. Diet-rich whole grain foods and other plant foods are low in saturated fat and cholesterol and may help reduce the risk of heart disease. So they usually have a red heart in this little statement. And so that indicates that this is a whole grain food. FNS is allowing the FDA whole grain health claim to be sufficient documentation to demonstrate compliance with the whole grain rich criteria in CACFP only. So we're able to do this. School lunch is not. Whole grain rich, the rule of three. So the rule of three is the ingredient list. You look at the ingredient list. So the first ingredient is whole grain, is listed as the first ingredient, second only after water. And then the next two grain ingredients, if any, are whole grain, enriched grain, bran, or germ. Exception, you can disregard anything containing less than 2%. So looking at this package of Sun Chips, the first ingredient is whole corn. And so whole corn is a whole grain. Then there's sunflower and canola oil, which we can disregard. And then the second grain is whole wheat. And then brown rice flour makes the third. And then there's a whole oat flour. And so we can determine that these Sun Chips are considered a whole grain rich item. So a lot of the chips now that start out with whole corn are credible as a whole grain. So I'm not telling that I want you to all rush out and start serving chips to our kids, because I still don't feel like that they're the most nutritious option. But this is a good option for maybe those after school care kids that just, they love to have, chips as a snack, or and in addition to something else like a Frito pie for lunch or something like that. But I would still not have these in your menus on a regular basis. So let's take a look at this goldfish. This is a very favorite of many family daycare homes. I don't pick up a menu without seeing goldfish somewhere on it. So we want to make sure that you're purchasing the goldfish that are whole wheat. So the first ingredient is whole wheat flour, and the second one is enriched wheat flour. There's no third grain ingredient. So this one is credible as a whole grain. But remember, there are some goldfish that are not whole grain. So you'll need to make sure and pay attention. But it's fine to serve the regular goldfish. Just don't put a WG beside it unless they're actually whole grain goldfish. Okay? And remember, we can disregard some ingredients. And these ingredients are not included in the rule of three. So grains can be disregarded are any grains less than the listed of 2%, and any grain derivatives such as wheat gluten, wheat starch, wheat dextrin, cornstarch, corn dextrin, rice starch, modified food starch. You can disregard any of those ingredients. Okay, so we're going to look at this Natural Ovens whole wheat bread. So the first ingredient is whole wheat flour. The second one is Vita wheat gluten. So we can, any grain derivatives such as wheat glutens, we can disregard. And the other one was a wheat fiber, and it's less than that 2%, so it contains less 2%, so we can disregard. So is this bread considered a whole wheat, a whole grain? Yes, it is. And here's another really popular one, and it says 100% whole grain on the front of the box. So look at the ingredients. The first ingredient is whole grain wheat flour. But then there's this cornstarch. And in the past, we were just like, I'm not sure, because cornstarch is a starch, which is a grain. But we can disregard any grain derivatives, such as cornstarch. So these wheat thins are considered 100% whole grain, and you can count them as a whole grain option. The next one is foods meets the whole grain rich criteria under the National School Lunch Program. If any of y'all are familiar with National School Lunch, if they count it as whole grain, then we can accept it as whole grain. The reason they included this in here is that a lot of 3- and 4-year-old programs are in with the school lunch program. So they wanted to make sure that they were serving the same whole grains, but this one really doesn't apply to you as a family daycare home. The next one will be a manufacturer documentation or a standardized recipe. So if you have a standardized recipe that says whole wheat, we can accept that as well. But what about cereals? If a ready-to-eat breakfast cereal has a whole grain as the first ingredient or second after water, and it's fortified, it also meets the whole grain rich criteria. So my favorite example is Cheerios. The first ingredient is whole grain oats, and that it's fortified. It includes vitamins and minerals. So this is a great option to get your whole grain first thing in the morning. Kids love Cheerios, and then you don't have to worry about whole grain for the rest of the day. But don't forget that not only does a ready-to-eat breakfast cereal have to meet the above criteria, but it also has to meet that sugar limit in order to be credible in the first place. So you got to watch the sugar too. What about this, this organic oats and honey? It looks like a very healthy cereal, but the first ingredient is whole grain oats, and then it has rice. And there's no vitamins or minerals, so therefore it's not a fortified cereal. And so this is not a whole grain rich under the cereal identification method or the rule of 3. Okay, so here's just like a little fun little game, and you can just hold your hands up because I want y'all to, I really like for things to be more interactive, but it's very hard to be interactive on YouTube, right? So this product is served during lunch at Johnson Elementary School. So I want you to hold up your hand. One finger, it's labeled whole wheat bread or pasta. 2, it's WIC approved, so it's a whole grain food. 3 fingers, it's FDA statement. 4 fingers, it's the rule of 3. 5 fingers, it's approved by the National School Lunch. And 6 is a documentation or a recipe. So the item we're going to look at is these pocket thins. And the pocket thins were served at the Johnson Elementary School. So hold up your fingers. Which one do you think it is? If you chose 5, you are correct. It's because that was a National School Lunch approved cereal. Flatbread. But more than likely, if we could see the ingredient list on this package, it would also have the rule of 3. So it could also be classified as that as well. Okay, the next one, this product is on the Special Supplement Nutrition Program for Women, Infant, and Children list. So that WIC list that we talked about. So the item that we are going to look at is these Mission 100% whole wheat tortillas. Which one do you think they are? 1 through 6. And I actually think that it can be more than 1, but we're looking at, it was on the WIC list. So which one would that be? If you chose number 2, you are correct. But it also says it's 100% whole wheat, so that would be labeled as whole wheat, and it would also follow the rule of 3. Okay, this product is labeled whole wheat macaroni product. 1 through 6. These are our options to choose from. This is the whole wheat elbow macaroni. Which one? 1 through 6. Hold up your fingers. If you chose number 1, you are correct. Yay, labeled whole wheat bread or pasta. All right, the next one. This product can help against heart disease. You can choose 1 through 6. And it's cream of wheat, instant whole grain. 1 through 6, which one do you think it is? If you notice right down there in the left-hand corner, you can see the heart with the statement. So this one would be number 3. It has an FDA statement. This product's ingredients. Look at the ingredient list on this product. graham flour, which is a whole grain wheat flour, unbleached enriched flour, wheat flour. Do you see any other ones? No. So we're gonna look at that. What do you think it would be? 1 through 6. If you chose the rule of 3, it's Teddy Grahams, by the way. If you chose rule of 3, you would be correct. Very good job. You should have all received the Identify a Whole Grain Rich last year during my training. It also should be connected to the handouts in this email. If you didn't receive it and you would like a copy of it, please just let us know and we can get that to you. Also on the state website, they have a nice grain chart to place in your kitchen as a reference when serving breads and grains in your CACFP program. It's a great cheat sheet to know how many to serve. Example, like wheat thins, a 1 to 5-year-old will need a minimum of 6 crackers, and a 6 to 12-year-old would need a minimum of 12 crackers. Also, remember to document the WG when you served whole grain options like wheat thins. Okay, now we're going to talk about choosing breakfast cereals that are lower in added sugar. There are a couple of ways to determine if a cereal meets the sugar limit. Remember that 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce. WIC cereals are always credible. And I also want to tell you about there's a recorded webinar is offered on the topic through USDA Team Nutrition. It's called CACFP Halftime 30 on Thursday webinar series. The choose breakfast cereals that are lower in added sugar and recorded webinar can be accessed at teamnutrition.usda.gov. And if you haven't been there, I highly encourage you. This is a great way to get additional hours or half hours of training at a time. Every month, Team Nutrition through CACFP provides these 30-minute halftime trainings. And usually they're just on one topic. You can go to their website and register to be on the webinar live during the time, or if you just wait till after the webinar, they will post it on their site where you can go back and watch it. Because sometimes, in the middle of the afternoon, it's not a good time for you to stop for 30 minutes to do a training. And I understand that. So I think that's a great way for y'all. I'm sorry that this year I'm not going to be able to give you tons of extra training. So I want to try to send you to different places to get extra training hours. So this is a great place to start. So really watch your breakfast cereals and how much sugar is in your cereal. Okay, ready-to-eat cereals include flakes, rounds, and puff cereals that older babies can pick up and eat. These cereals can only credit towards snack, not meals, on the infant production records. For ready-to-eat cereal to be credible, the amount of sugar must be no more than 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce of cereal. Nearly all infant cereals meet the sugar limit of 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce. There are many types of ready-to-eat cereals that meet the sugar limit as well. If you're unsure if the cereal you want to purchase is credible, there are a couple of ways you can determine if that cereal is credible. So let's take a closer look at the worksheet in Appendix D and walk through the steps together. Number 1, you're going to use the nutrition fact label to find the serving size in grams of the cereal. Find the sugar line. Look at the number of grams next to the sugar. Third, you'll use the serving size identified in step 1 to find the serving size on the cereal in the table. In the table, look at the number to the right of the serving amount in the sugar column. If the cereal has that amount of sugar or less, then the cereal meets the sugar requirement. So let's look at this Yummy brand cereal on the worksheet. Does this cereal meet the CACFP a sugar limit? The cereal does meet the sugar limit. The cereal has 5 grams of sugar per 30 grams, and the maximum amount of sugar allowed for 30 grams of cereal is 6 grams. So 5 grams are less than 6. So this cereal meets the sugar requirement. So and I've already mentioned that there's also another halftime video 30 on Thursdays that you can get more information about determining the sugar limits. But also remember that if it is a WIC cereal, it is credible on the food program. All right, this next one, let's look at this this bread. Is it credible? It looks like a really healthy bread. It says it's whole grain bread, but it's gluten-free. The first ingredient is water, and then it has a starch, and then it has a brown rice flour. So is this credible? No. Grains must be whole grain or enriched. And I know that there are some families that are trying to be gluten-free. We definitely don't encourage this for children unless there's a special dietary need, like the child has celiac disease or something. So if this is the case, then some gluten-free whole grain ideas are brown rice crackers, brown rice pasta, whole grain corn tortilla chips, gluten-free oatmeal, and corn or rice Chex or Cheerios. All of those are gluten-free. Okay, now let's look at this lunch meat. Is it credible? The ingredients are turkey, water, modified cornstarch, and contains less than 2% of, it doesn't really matter. So is this credible? No. So remember, read labels on lunch meat. It must be free from fillers, byproducts, cereals, and extenders. Note when reviewing a label for lunch meat hot dogs, it cannot contain anything more than the meat, water, and flavorings. Anything else like cereal, cornstarch, oatmeal, fillers, meat byproducts is not credible. Typically, lower quality, lower priced products include these things. On the package, we want to look for all beef meat, no fillers, no byproducts. These types of products are typically a bit more expensive, but they are much higher quality. Okay, let's look at this one. Number 7, correct this meal. Breakfast for a 1-year-old. We have eggs, oatmeal, and skim milk. What is wrong with this one? The biggest thing is you have to have a fruit or a vegetable for breakfast. Okay, so that cannot be omitted. When you're telling us the milk, please tell us what type of milk, but a 1-year-old would need whole milk. And it's fine for them to have eggs or oatmeal. I mean, they could have both, I guess, if you wanted to do both, but you can only substitute the meat or meat alternate for a bread 3 times a week for the bread or the grain. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you are planning your breakfast meals. All right, correct this statement. Tanya needs to serve at least 3 menu items to the children at lunch, and once they're finished, they can be rewarded with the rest. No. Tanya needs to serve all meal components at the same time. Remember, we cannot discriminate on the food program. Pre-plated meals and snacks, the minimum portion size must also be served. All right, what about these whole grain tortilla chips? Are they credible? The first ingredient is whole yellow corn, and they have some brown rice flour. So are these credible? Yes, they are whole grain rich. And remember, must say whole. And so sun chips are another option for a chip that is whole grain. The next one, let's correct this statement. Jessica feels that it's too difficult to follow the infant meal patterns and inform all infant parents that they need to supply all the child's food. Is this correct? No. Jessica must offer the food program to all children, including infants. We cannot discriminate based on age. So we must have an obligation to serve infant form on all infants in care. So if that parent has decided to provide everything and Jessica has a copy of that on her obligation to serve infant form, then it will be okay for that child. But we can't discriminate based on age. Okay, what about almond milk? This is another very popular milk right now. My family really enjoys drinking almond milk, but is it credible? And if it is, for what? No, it is not credible unless you have a medical reason with a medical statement. Remember that almond milk or any of the nut-based milks is not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. And children unable to meet meal patterns due to dietary restrictions, you'll need that medical statement. Okay, so keep that in mind. All of those non-nutritional milks like rice, coconut, flax, almond, cashews, they lack needed protein and other vitamins and minerals that our kids need for development. Okay, number 12, can you correct this statement? On Sue's snack visit, the PUCAR children field monitor observed apples and graham crackers, which that sounds good, yeah. But Sue recorded apple juice and yogurt. Sue can be paid for this snack. Sue cannot be paid for this snack. Provider's meal and meal count must match what the field rep observed and recorded. This is why it is so important that you do not fill out your production records till after you've served the meal. It is perfectly fine to set up your meals, week ahead, a month ahead, and have them posted for the children and the parents to see. But do not put them on your production records until after you serve the meal. Because what happened that day? Well, she was going to have apples and graham crackers, but she got there that morning and she's like, I don't have any apples, or we're out of graham crackers. So she decided to substitute. And that's fine that she substituted, because she substituted with 2 credible options. But we need to make sure that what she served is what is recorded and what the field rep also observed when she did her monitoring review. Okay, correct this statement. Annie is serving 1 pound of 80/20 ground beef for lunch today. This is equivalent to 16 ounces of meat. Is this true? No. When Annie is serving 1 pound of 80/20 ground beef, this is equivalent to 11.8 ounces of meat. So when cooking any ground meat, remember that it cooks down. And the best thing to use is the food buying guide as a reference. Everyone should be familiar with the food buying guide. If you're not, they have a website, which includes a new calculator. There's also a new app that you can download on your phone or your tablet, and it's called Food Buying Guide for CNP, and It is a great resource for when you're trying to determine what's credible, what's not credible, and then how much to serve to meet those minimum requirements. Another thing I wanted to touch on is standardized recipes. And FSN has done a wonderful job coming up with some great standardized recipes that you can cook that will meet the requirements. So you can check it out at this website. So go to www.fns.usda.gov, and then it's got recipes, healthy kids cookbook. And there's tons of wonderful recipes that are already laid out for you, and it will tell you how many it will serve and how much it will meet for each meal and each food item. Okay, number 14, correct this meal. This is a PM snack for a 6-year-old. The provider wrote down whole milk and chocolate chip cookies. Well, remember that whole milk is only to be served from the ages of 1 to 2. So 12 to 24 months of age are the only children that should be served whole milk. Once they reach their 2nd birthday, they need to be on skim or 1% milk. And remember, chocolate chip cookies are considered a grain-based dessert, and they're no longer credible on the food program. But graham crackers and animal crackers are okay. The state limits it to no more than 3 times per week. What about this one? Correct the meal. This is a snack for a 10-month-old. So this would be a baby on an infant menu. We've got Honey Nut Cheerios and apple juice. If an infant is developmentally ready to tolerate fruits and vegetables at both breakfast and lunch, it's also required at snack. So we do need a fruit or a vegetable. The 0 to 4 tablespoon does not mean optional, but that once they are developmentally ready, this is a requirement. Then we should see you record all 3 components every day after that meal has been served. So remember, juice is no longer allowed to be served to infants, so they need a formula and breast milk. And Honey Nut Cheerios have too much sugar, so we want to give them regular Cheerios. Infant feeding. Remember that meals may be reimbursed when a mother breastfeeds on site. A vegetable or fruit must be served at snack for older infants, and no juice is to be served to infants at any meal. Okay, there are some words that you need to know when it comes to infant feeding. So what I want you to do is look at this list of words and then choose the best definition that would match each word. So the first one is on-demand feeding. On-demand feeding is feeding a baby when he or she shows signs of being hungry. The next one is responsive feeding. Responsive feeding is understanding when a baby is hungry or full and responding to those signals. Similar to on-demand feeding, you feed the baby when he or she is hungry and let the baby stop eating when he or she is full. This gives the baby control over how much he or she eats during a feeding and helps the baby to learn when he or she is hungry and to stop when he or she's full. Let's see, the next one is solid foods. Solid foods are foods other than breast milk or infant formula that provide nutrients to the baby. So things like our infant cereals and our fruits and vegetables. What is reimbursable foods? Reimbursable meals are meals or snacks that meet CACFP meal pattern requirements. A meal or snack is reimbursable as long as all required food components are offered to the baby during the course of the day. So that leads us to what are food components? Food components, name of a group of foods in a CACFP reimbursable meal. Each meal and snack under the infant meal pattern is made up of food components, such as breast milk or formula, and vegetables and fruits. Vegetables and fruits are considered one food component in the infant meal pattern, but please remember that now in the child meal pattern, fruits and vegetables have been separated into two separate food components. Okay, and then the last one is developmental readiness. So that one is when a baby can control the muscles needed to eat solid food. A baby is developmentally ready to eat solid food when he or she is able to open his or her mouth when food comes to him or her and reaches for food. He can sit up in the high chair with good head control and uses his or her tongue to move the food from the spoon into the mouth and from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth. So this is really important when you're trying to decide if that child is ready to start solid foods. And this is something that you'll want to work together with the parent and maybe with a pediatrician to make sure that that child is developmentally ready to start solid foods. Okay, so the CACFP infant meal pattern is divided into two infant groups. There is birth through 5 months and 6 through 11 months. Food components. Each meal and snack under the infant meal pattern is made up of food components such as breast milk or formula and vegetables and fruits. So for breakfast, a 0 to 5 month old is only required to have the breast milk or formula. Once they're developmentally ready, which is usually around 6 months of age, for some children it may be sooner and some it may be later, but they will need 6 to 8 ounces of breast milk or formula, and they'll need infant cereal or another meat or meat alternate. And here are some of the choices that are now allowed on the infant menu. So they can have cheese or cottage cheese or yogurt. They can also have a whole egg now. So that is something that's relatively new. And then also remember that once they are developmentally ready for solid foods, they are required to have a fruit or a vegetable or both. But when you are purchasing your infant foods like fruits and vegetables, please be careful and try to stick to those stage 1, stage 2 fruits and vegetables. That way, you know, you're getting all of that one fruit or vegetable. A lot of the stage 3 infant baby foods are combinations, and those are not credible in the food program because you don't know how much of one food item they're getting versus another. So if it's like a chicken and rice, well, you don't know how much of that product is chicken and how much it's rice because there's no CN labels on infant food. Okay, serving size. The infant meal pattern lists minimum serving sizes of breast milk, infant formula, and solid foods as a range of numbers rather than one specific number. For example, for vegetables and fruit, the serving size for an infant 6 through 11 months of age is 0 to 2 tablespoons. This is because infants may not be developmentally ready for solid foods or all of the components exactly at 6 months. And infants who have just started eating solids may not eat much. A baby that has not yet started solid foods would receive a serving size of the 0, but a baby that's just started eating a food may be served 1 tablespoon, and a baby that has been introduced to the food multiple times would receive the full 2 tablespoons full. In all these instances, this meal would be reimbursable. Infants that are just beginning to eat solid foods may not eat all of the required food components at meals and snacks. The baby does not have to eat the entire amount served for the meal to be reimbursed, but it must be offered to that infant. In some cases, there are several foods you may offer to meet the food component. These are indicated by the use of the word "or" after each component in the table. For example, under the grain, meat alternate component, you may offer 0 to 4 tablespoons of infant cereal, meat, fish, poultry, whole egg, cooked dry beans, or peas. Or 0 to 2 ounces of cheese, or 0 to 4 ounces of cottage cheese, or 0 to 4 ounces of yogurt. What are the food components for lunch or supper for a 6 to 11-month-old baby? Look at this chart. Just like for breakfast, their breast milk or iron-fortified infant formula, infant cereal, and or another meat or meat alternate, and a vegetable and fruit or both. The serving sizes are also the same. What are the food components at snack? They are breast milk or iron-fortified infant formula, grains, and vegetables and fruit or both. This is different from breakfast, lunch, and supper. A meat or meat alternate is not an option at snack. At snack only, certain grains may be offered. Grains in the infant meal pattern include iron-fortified dry infant cereal, breads and crackers, credible only if offered as a snack, not with a meal, ready-to-eat cereals. Grains served must be made with enriched or whole wheat meal or flour. Ready-to-eat breakfast cereals and infant cereals that are iron-fortified are also credible. There's no whole grain requirement in the CACFP infant meal pattern, like in the child menu pattern. But ready-to-eat cereals include flakes, rounds, and puff cereals that older babies can pick up and eat. Ready-to-eat cereals are credible only towards snack, not meals. For a ready-to-eat cereal to be credible, the amount of sugar must be no more than 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce of cereal, and the cereal must be iron-fortified. Almost all infant cereals meet the sugar limit, and there are so many types of ready-to-eat cereals that meet the sugar limit as well. Some ready-to-eat cereals may be a choking hazard, so when purchasing the cereals, they should choose ones that dissolve easily in the mouth, like Cheerios or Kix or Chex, things like that, and try to avoid the ones that include nuts and dried fruits and other hard food items. So recall from the words to know slide earlier that responsive feeding is understanding when a baby is hungry or full and responding to those signals. A meal or snack is reimbursable as long as all of the required food components and the amounts are offered to the baby during the course of the day while the baby is in your care. So, if the baby's not hungry at breakfast right at 8 o'clock, but is hungry and it's provided a reimbursable breakfast at 9 a.m., you can still claim that meal as breakfast. And this is only for infants. So, true or false? Responsive feeding means that you feed a baby when he or she shows signs of being hungry and stop feeding when the baby shows signs of being full. The answer is true. The Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program Guide is your go-to resource for understanding the CACFP infant meal pattern. Each baby in your care has his or her own eating abilities. This is because babies grow and develop at different rates. The guide contains information on how to offer meals that are reimbursable to the CACFP. You will also find in the guide resources that you can use to start a conversation with parents. This will help you learn about their baby's eating habits so you will know when to give certain foods to a baby and which foods to avoid. You can make sure the babies are getting the best care possible by speaking with the parents regularly and working together as a team. You should have all received a copy of this Feeding Infants in CACFP at last year's training. If you still need a copy, please contact our office and we will get one to you. If you do care for infants and you haven't taken the time to read this guide, I highly encourage you to pull this out and take some time to really study this resource, because it is a great resource out there from Team Nutrition. So developing positive relationships with parents is critical to providing the best care possible for their baby. Frequent communication is one way to foster this relationship. The Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program guide contains a number of tools participants can use to start a conversation. There's several parent handouts in the Feeding Infants, and as a best practice, you can use these handouts to communicate with parents on a variety of topics, such as babies' eating habits and developmental readiness for solid foods. Handouts are also available for free download from the USDA Team Nutrition website at teamnutrition.usda.gov. So if you haven't checked out that resource, I highly encourage you. Team Nutrition has lots of extra trainings and resources out there that are free to you as a child care provider. Okay, so what about our computer forms? Remember that our forms are available to use on Adobe or Excel, and we encourage you to try these out if you haven't already. From what I've heard from Melissa, it's all been positive. The people who have really jumped in and used the Adobe forms, they've really enjoyed that, and they're able to send them right over to Melissa at the end of the week, and so that way she's got them and gets them checked, and we can get you paid quicker. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or Amy. Here's our email addresses again. So please contact us if you need new updated forms, that we can send those to you. If you're still using the paper copy forms and you need those, just contact Melissa and she can mail those to you. Since we haven't been out in the field as much, some of you may be running low on those things, so don't hesitate to call and we can mail those to you. So speaking of forms, okay, so now it's the end of the month and you've got to decide, okay, what do I need to include in my monthly claim packet so I can get my reimbursement as soon as possible. So the first thing that we want to make sure that you include is your attendance records for the month. Okay, this is what your attendance records should look like. You can do this a couple of ways. One, you can just list all the children enrolled in your program. Mona would ask that you put them in alphabetical order by the child's last name. That just makes it so much easier for her to go through and check and compare with her database that we have an enrollment form, an income form, and an obligation to serve infant form on each one of those children. Some of the larger centers, if you would like to do one per classroom, that's fine as well, but also try to put those in alphabetical order by the child's last name. If you do happen to get kids in the middle of the month, feel free to just add those at the bottom. We never want you to have to redo anything. Then please check off whether they're free, reduced, or paid, and you would get that information from your income form. So how did you classify them? If you use the Adobe forms or if you use the Excel version, then it's going to add it up for you to give you your 3 grand totals at the bottom for free, reduced, and paid. Those 3 totals are very important because you'll need those numbers to put on your claim form, which we'll talk about in a minute. If you're handwriting, then just make sure that you add those up correctly. Make sure you put the center name and the month and the year. If you are using the computer forms and this is a new month, please make sure you change that month of the year up there at the top. You're going to list the days that you were open that month, and you can, if you use the computer form, it's either going to put a 1 or it's going to put a check mark if they're there. And so we ask that you do the same, or you can put an A if they're absent, and then just add those straight down and across. So this will be the first thing that we're looking for in the claim packet. The next thing is if you're caring for infants, and an infant is, remember, 0 to 12 months. So we're looking, you put the name of your facility and the date. Typically you just have one page for the day for all of the infants in your care. If you do have more than one infant room and you want to have an infant production record for different rooms, that is fine. Just make sure you document that and let Mona know. So for breakfast, remember, birth to 5 months, all we're looking for is the formula or breast milk. So for number 1, you can just put an F/BM. We will know from your obligation to serve infant form what you're giving to each individual infant. So there's no reason to list every type of formula that you're offering in that little square. So the amount used, you're just going to add up the bottles and how much did you prepare. And you're going to put that typically in ounces. That's just the easiest way. So, if you had 4 babies and you gave each of them 4 ounces, then you go 4, 8, 12, 16 ounces. So then you'll put 16 ounces. And I always get asked this question, what if I make a 4-ounce bottle and the baby only drinks like 3 ounces and then they're done? Do I document 3 ounces or 4 ounces? Well, you started and you served the 4 ounces, so that's what you would document. And then you would just need to dump out that 1 ounce and clean the bottle good and have that ready to prepare for their next meal. Once they're around 6 months of age, that's when you'll want to start doing infant cereals and fruits and vegetables. And remember, now it's developmentally ready. So if you have a 4-month-old that is sitting up and you can feed with a spoon and is ready for the infant cereals, then you can go ahead and start then. Or some, it might be over 6 months. Especially like premature babies. They may not be ready for that infant cereal until they're around 7 or 8 months of age. So that's the great thing about the new regulation about serving infants when they're developmentally ready. So just make sure that once they are ready, that you are documenting what type of cereal you're serving, whether it's rice, barley, oatmeal, and how many tablespoons, and then also what fruit or vegetable you're serving. And don't just write fruit. Actually tell us that you did bananas, you did pears, you did sweet potatoes, whatever it might be, and then how many tablespoons you served. You can also tell us that in jars if you would like. If you served 3 4-ounce jars, just always make sure and tell us what size the jar was, and not just I serve 4 jars, because there's all different sizes jars of baby food. And then you're going to tell us how many were birthed to 5 months of age and how many were 6 to 11 months of age. If you use the computer forms, it's going to add those two together for you so that it helps you get all your numbers together for your claim. And remember, on babies now, you have to have 3 components for all meals. So pretty much all meals are the same, except for snacks. They can have a grain or a bread product instead of the cereal. And you can pretty much serve, crackers or Cheerios or any type of infant snacks are pretty much all credible. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head that's not credible is the Mum Mum, because it's a potato starch, so it's not even a grain. So really be careful with that. But any other type breads and grains that you would serve an infant will be fine. So that would be the next thing that we need to include in our packet, is all of your infant records for the month. The next thing will be the child daily production records. And on this one, you'll just want to put the name of your facility. You can use this form for the whole day for all of your children ages 1 through 12. The left side is your planning. It gives you the meal patterns and your meal planning. So that way you can plan what you're having and estimate your numbers to make sure that you have enough food in your kitchen to prepare for your children. This is not what we're looking for when Mona is checking. She's really only going to be concentrating on what you write down on the right side of the form, but please feel free to use the left side. But some centers, y'all, will plan a whole month in advance and put it on a calendar, and that's fine. Just make sure that you're planning. We just want to make sure that you're thinking about this beforehand, thinking about what you need so that you have everything that you need to prepare these meals for the amount of kids that you're planning on having. So for breakfast, the components served, that's where you're going to list the actual food components, okay? So for number 1, you're going to put milk, but you also need to tell us what type of milk. Remember, your 1-year-olds need to be on whole milk. So once they reach their first birthday to their second birthday, they need to be on whole milk. From their second birthday to their 12th birthday, they need to be on skim or 1% milk. So for number 1, you could put whole. You could put a W/1%, and then you might have some that are on soy, so you could put /soy, SOY. And then on the amount of the component used, you can either add it all up and say I served 148 ounces of milk, or the way that I recommend is that you say, if it was whole was first, and say how much whole milk you served / in ounces, how much 1% milk you served in ounces / and then how much soy. That way, when Mona does your milk audit at the end of the month and she finds out that you're short of milk, she can help you to determine which type of milk you're short in, and that will make it easier for you to be able to fix the problem in the future. So number 2, you're going to list the fruit or vegetable that you're serving for breakfast. And please tell us what type of fruit, if it's bananas, applesauce, and then how much you used. And number 3 is your breads or grains. And then number 4 is your meat or meat alternates. And remember, that's optional. It's not required. You can do the meat or meat alternate in replace of your bread up to 3 times a week, but it's not a requirement. Lunch, we're going to have 5 components, and also for dinner, if your center serves dinner, they'll be exactly the same. You're going to have your milk, your meat or meat alternate, your fruit, your vegetable, and your bread or grain. And then for your snacks are pretty easy. You just want to choose 2 different components from 2 different food groups. And there at the bottom, there's daily comments. So if you have any comments that you need to make to share with Mona, that's where you would put that for that day. If you have any questions or you need any help filling out your production records, don't hesitate to call and ask questions. Email us, and remember that we're here for you to help you with this. I'm just not going to go too much in depth on this because of time, but also because most of y'all have been with us for a long time and you know how to fill out production records. So the next thing that we want to make sure you include in your pack is your recap sheet and your claim form. Now, if you are using all of your forms on Adobe or Excel, then you may not have the recap sheet because Amy has created these great forms that gives you the grand total at the end. So all you're going to do is you need to know how many breakfasts you serve for the month, how many lunches you serve for the month, how many PM snacks, how many suppers, and you need to be able to put that information on your claim form. On your claim form, please make sure you put the name of your center, the address, the month you served, how many days you served food that month, and then your totals. And remember, your total for free, reduced, and paid is how many kids are free, how many reduced, and how many are paid. And you're going to get that by your attendance records at the bottom. You are one center, most of you, and then number 11, this is very, very important, is you make sure and add up your receipts for the month and how much you spent on food. And that's the number that goes right there. So please make sure that you're saving those receipts. The receipts are your golden ticket for reimbursement. So make sure that you're doing that. And then sign it and date it. We can't accept forms that are not signed and dated. Okay. So the next thing Okay, the next thing I want to talk a little bit more about is receipts. Remember, receipts are like gold. We have to have a receipt to verify that you are spending the money on food. So remember that 100% of the money that you receive from us needs to go directly back into your food program. And Mona is looking to make sure that you're spending at least half of your reimbursement on food. And she needs to see copies of those receipts. And those receipts need to be legible, they need to be itemized. She needs to be able to see where you purchased it, the time, the date, and how you paid for that food. Okay, so just to recap everything that needs to be included in your monthly packet, we need attendance records for the month, we need infant production records for the month, we need child production records for the month, a copy of your recap sheet, claim form, copies of all itemized receipts, and any new or updated enrollment forms. Now, you can take all of these paper and you can put them in the yellow envelopes that we provided you with, and you can just mail them in the mail. You can scan them or email them, or you can take pictures and email them with the scanning apps, but please make sure that you're using the scanning apps on your phones and not the JPEG, the pictures, because it takes up so much more memory. So if you ever interested in trying to do scanning apps with your phone, please don't hesitate to ask myself or Amy. If you have an iPhone, it's very simple because it's already built into your phone, into the notes section. But those are just some certain other ways that you can get your monthly packet into us. So if you, like I said, don't hesitate to call if you have questions. Other reminders are just to be organized. Document records every day after every meal. Never take your records outside of the center. You need to maintain a copy of all your records and receipts for 5 years plus the year that you're in, that we're working on, okay? And I would also say, if you're doing everything on the computer, make sure that you have them in a second location, either that you're printing them out and you have a paper copy, or you're saving them onto a thumb drive, or you're saving them into the cloud. I would just always make sure that you have 2 different places in case your computer ever was to crash or you're not able to open and access it when you're being audited. Okay, and I kind of touched on this, but make sure that you're tracking your expenses. Remember, every dollar you receive from us needs to go directly back into your food program. Please keep a record with receipts in case you're ever audited. This form right here is not required, but I highly encourage you to use some type of record keeping. Just however you want to do this. The rule of thumb is the carryover from the previous month is up to 10%. Food costs for the month at least 50%, and that's what Mona's looking at. So if you receive a check, say of $1,000, then a minimum of $500 needs to be spent on actual food. If she sees that you're getting $1,000 and you're only spending $300 on food, then she's going to contact you and let you know that you need to be spending more money on food. You need to buy, more high quality food, get more fresh fruits and vegetables or frozen, and stay away from the can. Whatever you can do to spend more money on food. You can also use some of the money you receive from us on paper products and kitchen supplies. You can pay a cook's salary or a portion of your salary for filling out the paperwork. You can do capital expenses like refrigerators, freezers, stoves, microwaves, things like that. We just ask that you don't take that all out of one check. You just need to figure out how you want to do that, and you could say, well, this cost $1,000, so I'm going to take $200 out of each of my food checks until it's paid for. You can also claim your mileage, like especially those that live out of the city and you're going to drive to Sam's in town. You can track and take care of claim that mileage. And then the indirect cost would be rent and utilities. I would say keep that to the very end because it's very difficult to figure. I would try to spend all my money on all the other items. And then if you get to the point where you're going to have to figure that out, it's going to be based on the hours you're open and the rent and the utilities, where you prepare food and where you serve your food. Okay? The next thing is I always ask Mona and Melissa when I do trainings, what are some reminders from you? What things do you want me to tell the providers? Some reminders from Mona is check your emails from AR Children. If you get an email from AR Children, then it's important and we need you to check that. We need an obligation to serve infant form on every infant care, even if they're breastfed on site. All infants must stay on formula breast milk for 1 year. Remember that those 6 to 12 months have 3 components for breakfast, lunch, and PM snack. All providers must offer formula and have a can in their center at all times, and it doesn't need to be expired. The month a child turns 1, they go on the child menu form and must be served whole milk. If you're using computer forms, make sure and change the date on all the forms. And please email our mail packets by the 15th of the month. Okay? Let's see. She's got a few more reminders here about when serving fruits and vegetables. So when you're serving breakfast of fruits and vegetables, a 1 to 2 year old would get 1/4 a cup of fruit or 1/2 of a piece of fruit. Your 3 to 5 year olds and your 6 to 12 year olds would get 1/2 a cup of fruit, or they'll get a whole fruit or vegetable. And that is different when you're looking at the PM. So when you're doing PM snack and you want to serve a fruit or vegetable, the 1 to 2 year olds need 1/2 a cup. The 3 to 5 year olds need 1/2 a cup. So that means a whole fresh fruit, an apple, banana, orange, pear, and the 6 to 5 year olds need 3/4 of a cup. Okay. Remember that I already mentioned, but new fresh copies of enrollment forms and income forms yearly. Please don't white things out on previous forms. And remember that no cookies or desserts. Remember, the grain-based desserts are not allowed on the food program, and even if they do, read whole grain on them. Please try to stay away from those and don't list them on your production sheets. Here are some places you can start. USDA has some great videos that you can watch. The state of Arkansas has some great videos, and Team Nutrition also has some. So these are some places that you can start to get extra hours, because I know that you still need extra hours for licensing and for better beginnings. And just unfortunately, this is about all that we can provide for you this year. And hopefully, coming up in the next few months, we'll be able to start offering more trainings on site as things get better. But one of my favorite trainings that I have found is the CACFP halftime 30 on Thursdays training webinars. You can register for upcoming webinars, or you can watch the ones that are previously recorded. And so these are great 30-minute trainings, and these are great resources to use to train your staff too on specific topics. So they're usually on something specific, like feeding infants, or serving more whole grains, or serving meat or meat alternates for breakfast. So they're usually very specific topics, and so you can watch those, and at the end of those, they will give you a 30-minute training certificate. So I mean, if you do those once a month, I mean, that's just a really easy way to get some more training hours. So what is our plan? Our plan for 2020, 2021 is, I just want you to know that we're here for you, even though we're not seeing you face to face. We will continue to conduct on-site and over the phone reviews as needed. Please contact our office if you will be closed for any reason, or if you have any positive cases of COVID-19. Training may still look a little different. I would like to hold small group trainings at our new office. I'd like to provide more online trainings like this, and Zoom meetings as needed. I think it would be really great to try to do some small group Zoom meetings, so that way y'all can have a chance to talk to each other. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. Just email me and say, I would really be interested in having a Zoom meeting so that we can discuss more things. And I'm definitely open to hosting those for you. Okay. So I want to end with a quote from Marcus Samuelson. He says, cooking with your kids is engaging them in hands-on activities are two ways to begin to educate children about the healthy eating and kickstart the important task to help change how the younger generation looks at food and nutrition. And I thought this was a great quote. I try to end with a quote every year, and I just thought this was a good one. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to complete this 2-hour training. So please now, if you will, take your open the email back up and fill out that training checklist and that Q&A and email those to me. Please try to get those to me by September 11th, 2020, so we can make sure that your center is in good standing for the year. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email me. And thank you so much for your time, and bless you. And I pray that each one of y'all are doing well and you have a great school year. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.